All right, for those of you just joining us, we have the pleasure of hearing from Jake Axtons and Matt Gentile, co-founders of the Sexuality and Gender Alliance for Actuaries. Matt and Jake, I want to talk a little bit more about some of the discussions and conversations that you've been involved with as part of SAGAA. And there's a recent post on the SAGAA LinkedIn page that I want to discuss for a few minutes. And it was in reference to a recent SAGAA meeting. And they said, and I'll quote this from the post, it says, "We discussed the struggle of dealing with companies who preach LGBTQ plus inclusivity during Pride Month and then refuse to actually show up for LGBTQ plus people." And then there was a warning. It says, "Be wary of exploitation disguised as allyship." So let me ask you this, and Matt, I'll start with you. What does it mean to show up for LGBTQ plus people? Sorry.
Oh, no worries. It's about fall. Yeah. So when I think of this and the conversation that we had, it's probably a more recent phenomenon that the LGBTQ plus community has faced, where everyone come Pride Month changes their logos to rainbows and says, we are supportive of the community. And that's really it. It comes Pride Month, that's all we see. The 11 other months of the year, it's not a peep out of them about it. And a lot of times, these companies even do things that are anti-LGBTQ plus throughout the year. So the conversation we had was really focused on, okay, how can companies really prove that they are authentically supportive of the community? When I think of the number one thing that comes to mind, it's the putting your money where your mouth is type of thing. These companies say they're supportive, but there are a lot of companies out there that actually donate to individuals that have individuals or companies that are anti-LGBTQ plus. And then you just think about how they treat their employees or their customers. Are they doing stuff to advance their LGBTQ plus employees in general? Are there inclusive health benefits? Is there representation in the company in general? Are there leaders that are LGBTQ plus? And then are they appropriately serving their LGBTQ plus customers? I think a lot of time in the insurance realm, it's like, do you have representation in the different products that you offer that really meets the needs of the wide range of LGBTQ plus communities? And then, like I said, the biggest thing is, what are you doing outside of Pride Month? Are these conversations happening, only in June, or are you having these conversations at other times throughout the year? So I think it all comes down to, just being an ally of the community, like we talked about before. And for me, an ally is someone who really tries to understand a marginalized community, like, understand challenges they face, the issues they face, and you are working towards helping to advance them. So, when I think of someone who would be an ally to me in the workplace, they would make sure that my voice is heard at meetings. Like, so if I'm being left out of it, they'd make sure that that opportunity was there for me to speak. And it's an ally you would see across any marginalized group. You're just there to really push forward those individuals. So I think a lot of times when we talk about Pride Month, there is always that concern that companies are using it as an opportunity, to sell merchandise, to show, okay, now our store is stocked with rainbow flag shirts, and oh, look, now we have, the trans flag that we're doing, you come buy it here. But are you actually really doing something for the community, or is it just an opportunity to, make a quick buck?
Yeah, the one term that I think I've seen a lot over the last couple of weeks, as we've gone out of Pride Month and now into July, has been this idea of performative allyship. Jake, maybe you can talk about that a little bit for us, what the difference between performative allyship and what it really truly means to be an ally. We've obviously touched on that a little bit, but it'd be great to get your thoughts.
Yeah, sure. So when I think about allyship, a phrase that I have heard and I've really, really become attached to is allyship is a verb, not a noun. Or being an ally, which means like to be an ally, you need to continuously be listening, learning, and acting. And I'm not saying that that means that you need to be like running on the streets and like always be wearing rainbow or something like that. But instead, you need to be critiquing yourself and thinking about, how am I showing up for those around me, and how am I showing up to support those, and how am I listening to learn instead of listening to understand what my employees or my friends or my family members are saying when we have conversations related to their identity. When it comes to performative allyship, it really just comes down to thinking about the intent versus like the impact of what you're doing. And I think to have like non-performative or genuine allyship, you need to have both pieces, the intent and the impact. So your intent needs to not be, instead of like, I want to show that I am an ally, it should be, I genuinely care about the people within this community or the people that I know. And this is how I can support them. And this is how I can be here for them. And this is how I can simply just be friends and include them and treat them like other people.
So one thing that I'll throw out there, Jake, and I think it's helpful for people to understand when they're trying to be an ally, there's certain things that maybe they do that someone on the receiving end of that would say, okay, yeah, I understand that you're trying to help us here, but you're not really helping us. Are there examples that you can give of people that are trying to be an ally that maybe are well-intentioned but falling short?
Yes. Honestly, the first thing that comes to mind to me is people trying to avoid critical conversations and kind of like tiptoeing around things. So one of my fondest memories of working in the actuarial profession came, I want to say it was a year and a half in my career. We were going out to a team lunch because I was switching teams. And someone asked me, at the time I was dating someone, and they asked me like, oh, how are things going with your boyfriend? And that was the first time that I had heard someone use the term boyfriend to refer to the person that I was dating. People would say maybe like, how's your bae? Which is fine too. But hearing the word boyfriend like made me feel like goosebumps, literally. Just like the fact that someone would say it instead. And I know there are some individuals who prefer the term partner, which is maybe like more gender ambiguous. But for me, having someone like outwardly like acknowledge that the person that I was dating was a man was really, really cool for me. So I guess like that was one example that was well-intentioned and like didn't involve talking around the issue. The next would be honestly thinking about Pride Month. I really appreciate when people like say Happy Pride Month, or they'll go out of their way to ask questions, not because they're being nosy, but because they genuinely understand. So maybe someone will ask me like, okay, now you are like, I just switched jobs and now I'm a virtual employee. Like, tell me about like how Pride is important to you, or what's going on in your area for Pride Month, or why do you feel like, how do you feel included in terms of like LGBTQ plus inclusion at this organization where you have never stepped in physically but are a part of. So I really appreciate when people go out of their way to ask questions in a way that shows that they genuinely care and that they genuinely want to learn to do better and be better.
Matt, I'll throw that same question out to you.
Yeah, I think Jake hit on some really good ways of being an ally. I think one of the biggest things is going out of your way to educate yourself. I think the biggest challenge I face is a lot of time people that are allies expect the LGBTQ plus individual to teach them and then put an extra additional burden on them. But I think going out of your way and looking up the resource and making sure that you understand things so that that burden isn't always on the individual. I know that it's well-intentioned because you want to learn, but a lot of time it's like the same with any sort of race topics, going to someone that's Black and asking them like, to teach you. Well, you can't just put that burden on that individual all the time. And it's something that, like I said, it's well-intentioned, and I genuinely believe that people want to learn, but you just sort of have to take a step back and realize that, it's not always up to the person who is in the marginalized group to educate everyone. And I'd also say to that point, like Jake said, just making people feel like they're included and part of the conversation. I mean, I also prefer using the term boyfriend or husband or something along that lines, because sometimes I do feel like, people are tiptoeing around it. And it's interesting because, like Jake said, a lot of people do prefer using the term partner, but I think some of the times it's just that general acknowledgement that it's there, and then it sort of makes the conversation less uncomfortable, especially if it's in a group of people. And if I've already acknowledged that I'm comfortable with that. It's those small things that can just make future conversations less awkward and uncomfortable, because then I don't feel like I have to tiptoe around it. And then, like I say, just reading the room when you're having conversations with LGBTQ plus people, if you know that I'm not comfortable, you know, talking about it in front of certain groups of people, like that's your opportunity to take a step back and realize like it's not there. It's not, I don't want that conversation happening right now, so you shouldn't be leading that conversation. So it's like, you know, you want to be there for the person and just make sure that the person you're being the ally to, that you feel comfortable, you know, with their level of comfortability, because it varies across the board. Because I mean, I had no employees at my prior company who were not, I don't want to say weren't out in the workplace at all, but they were not involved in any of the pride stuff there, and they just sort of wanted that life. They wanted that separation between work. So you know, it's a difficult field to navigate it sometimes as well.
Yeah, well, I think what it comes down to, in hearing both of your experiences and advice there, is it does require people to have a personal relationship with you, so that they know, like, you know, I can talk to Matt about these subjects in this setting, and I know he's going to be comfortable. You don't get that without getting to know Matt, right? And I think that's true of any minority group, right? And I think a lot of minority groups as well are usually, I mean, my experience has been they're very open when you come to them with a question and say, hey, what is this experience like for you? They're very willing to tell you what they think and how they feel, especially if they feel like the person's genuinely asking because they're coming from a place of trying to understand, right? As opposed to you know, some other ulterior motive that they may have. But Jake, let me go back to you. You talked about the relative newness of SAGAA, the fact that you're set up as a not-for-profit, you're getting your 501c3 designation. In the meantime, how can people that are interested support or participate in what SAGAA is doing?
Yes, a good first step would be to check out our social media and website. So as I mentioned, we have LinkedIn, which is LinkedIn/company/SAGAA Actuaries. We have Instagram, which is also /SAGAA Actuaries, and then our website, which is www.sagaactuaries.org. Those are three good ways for us as like a good first landing point for you to learn more about our organization. You can also feel free to always reach out to any of us on LinkedIn, or we also have email addresses through SAGAA as well. Those are good connection points. We're typically willing to have like half-hour conversations as well with people who are wanting to get involved, both from an allyship company and then also from an LGBTQ plus individual perspective. One of our main, I would say it's like our keystone touch points that we have is every quarter we have our quarterly meetings. And in those meetings, we pick a different topic and we will kind of unpack that topic. So to start off the meeting, we usually first give like a general update of what we're working on with SAGAA. Then we'll give the opportunity for individuals who are attending to introduce themselves if they so wish. And then we will introduce the topic and discuss in breakout rooms. So our topic last time was just that you mentioned, the like prideification conversation that we just unpacked a little bit there. And then we'll wrap up. And what's honestly been very, very interesting is that more times than not, people will want to continue far past the hour in conversation to share their experiences, share thoughts they have, and share things that we can and should be working on and will continue to work on to push in the profession, or share their personal experiences and things that they've seen in the workplace. So that's a few ways. And then also, yes, we are hoping to get that 501c3 status, which will open the door for us to accept more sponsorships from companies. And we have actually launched our first, I guess we'll call it like a funding drive, our opening sponsor drive. And so if someone or a company donates, I guess I'll say if a company donates within the first within 3 months of us achieving that 501c3 designation, they will be A, listed on our website forever as a founding sponsor. B, we will make a LinkedIn post and a job post about them. And then C, we're willing to come up with some sort of educational content for them, whether that be an educational like webinar that we do for them, recorded or live. They have a meeting with our board members to discuss, like, maybe they want to talk about their recruiting practices, or maybe they want to talk about having a program that they put on, or some sort of customized offering. So we're pretty flexible there, but we're also very open to individuals who want to share their stories. So we've released a variety of articles. I think each of our board members has been focused in one, if not multiple of them, but we are hoping to amplify the voices not only of us who are involved with the leadership team, but also our members and others who want to get involved.
That's excellent. And for anyone that's joining us here live, we've dropped some of those links that Jake mentioned into the chat box so that you can access them and follow them on LinkedIn and Instagram, and then the webpage that Jake mentioned as well. It sounds like there's a lot of really cool stuff that you guys have in the works here. And I love that founding sponsor offering that you guys have. That sounds like an awesome thing for people to consider doing. Matt, let me turn back over to you. Any initial success stories or anecdotes that you can share?
Yeah, we've definitely had a lot happen in the past year, and some things have been pretty impactful. I want to point out one thing so one of our board members, Arius Johnson, they use they, them pronouns, and they wrote an article, just explaining the challenges of being, transgender or non-binary within the workplace, and how there's constant challenges that you face if you're coming out and using pronouns that go against the normal binary that we're used to. And that article was both published by the CAS and the SOA, and we have received a lot of really positive feedback from that, and has really helped to push that conversation forward. So that has been I'd say a really big success there, because that's a topic that is really important and a lot of people don't really understand behind. I'd also say just the creation of our committees has been a success story. Like Jake said, it was the two of us starting off. We were able to bring some board members on, but if we're going to accomplish any of the goals that we really want to, we need a wider base. And we've already had some opportunities with our education committee and our social media committee to really push out a lot more content and really hit on the goals that we set aside from the beginning. And even from that, we've already had sponsors that have stepped up and said they want to sponsor us, and that's been great. And I think that just shows that people are already pleased with what we're doing and really see the importance of the group, and are giving us the opportunity to really show them like what we can do to better the profession for them.
So if people are interested in contributing or volunteering with SAGAA, what's the best way they can reach out?
So if they go on our website, there's a section on there, I forget exactly what it's listed as, but it might be volunteer. And under there's the different committees that we have, and each of those has a link to it that you can just sort of fill out. I think they're Google Docs, and say what you're interested in being involved in. And then there's also just an opportunity to join our mailing list. If you don't want to, be part of one of those committees, but you just want to be in the know, I'm sure we're also going to end up having, micro volunteer opportunities for different things as well. That doesn't mean, you're specifically on a committee as we start getting deeper into stuff. So that's a way to just be on our mailing list and to receive any emails in addition to, following on LinkedIn, because we'll definitely post stuff out there as well as what opportunities come up.
Excellent. We have had one question come in through the chat, and for anyone that's here with us live, feel free to submit those questions through the Q&A pane. But Jake, let me ask you this. Do you see a future where actuarial tables are non-binary?
I see a future where the information is hopefully started to be collected and hopefully used in smart ways. So I think that we should be using that information in pricing in a variety of ways. It could be auto insurance, also uses gender or sex right now. It could be life insurance. It could be various other types of insurance. But I'm hoping that that information is collected and that people are given the rates that they should be based on the gender. We are hoping to work on this further. We have had companies reach out to us to ask what our thoughts are on that a few times. And we've also had individuals, both within the community and who identify as allies, reach out and say that they're interested in working on that topic. And so we are hoping to push some of that forward here. And Matt, do you want to talk a bit about that? Because I know you've had a lot more conversations about that recently.
Yeah, for sure. So I think, like Jake said, do I see, a specific where everything is non-binary? No, not necessarily, but I think just sort of opening up the different opportunities of ways to identify yourself will help, to what Jake was saying, to collect the data and to be able to analyze and see if there are, valuable differences in there. In a lot of different insurance products right now, we're so set on the male-female approach. And even in some of those, that might be an outdated way of thinking altogether. So there's definitely opportunity, but like Jake said, I think what we're really hoping is that people, instead of just accepting, the norm of what we've always done, people really start digging into these topics and seeing if there is something there. But it all comes down to, having the data available to even do that analysis. So yeah, there's definitely been a lot of conversation around it. That's actually something we've talked about within the education committee, because we have a few members of that group that are really passionate about that and have had some experience. And basically, what I've heard anecdotally is a lot of companies don't know how to handle these situations, and it happens a lot of times with transgender individuals, where they don't know how to place them. And when you have this binary, then it becomes more of a struggle, and not everyone is treating the same individual the same when they actually put them into their rating system. So that becomes a huge issue in us treating our customers fairly. So it's definitely an area that we want to start diving into and thinking of ways that we can sort of get people thinking about that topic. Because what it comes down to is, people need to be having the conversations and be doing the research behind the scenes in order to us to see what we should be doing. And I don't think up until recently those conversations have been having that option, have been having as much as they should be. But what I will say is, there's going to be more and more demand for it, because if you think of, for example, state IDs at this point, a lot of state IDs offer an opportunity for you to put non-binary. And then you're asking that individual to purchase a auto policy, and in the auto policy, they have to select male or female. Well, there's all of these challenges. So it's like, as we as a society are moving towards general acceptance of the concept of non-binary, we as actuaries really have to figure out how that plays a role or factor into our pricing and our methodologies.
Excellent.